So Philip joined us as a mentor in February 2024. And I noticed on his profile that he said he only wanted to do 1 hour or 2 hours a week. And I don't know what happened, but I guess someone or some people made an impression on him because he's doing a lot more than that now. He's from the UK, and he said that he really wanted to hear about life in Ukraine firsthand and do something to help Ukrainian people affected by Russia's aggression. He also had some experience teaching or helping people who were learning English in the UK. And one of his comments was that he had a colleague say to him that my English doesn't get better because nobody corrects me. So I think he came from a place of knowing how to gently correct people, and that's made him a very good mentor. So yeah, on his intake form, he said he would do 2 hours a week, but I now see that he has 3 matches, and he's joined the volunteer team doing matching himself. So since he started, he's actually done 247 matches. So he's made connections between people, between almost 300 people, which is awesome. And it's not a simple process. Just so that you're aware, we take a student profile, we look at their language level, we look at their professional interests and their hobbies, and then we try to find them a mentor on a list who is going to be a good partner for them. And it's quite painstaking, and it takes a lot of time. So Philip has been a really important member of our community, helping to make all of these matches recently. So we know that a good match can really change someone's life or someone's career. And so we put a lot of effort into this, and I just wanted to thank Philip for all of his hard work doing this. So I was kind of shocked when he said he wanted to do a webinar, because I thought, don't you have enough work to do? But here we are. So I'm delighted that you're hosting today, Philip, and I will let you continue the presentation, and then at the end we'll have a discussion. And for all the students here, please don't be shy. You know, this is a place where we don't care about if you make mistakes or use the wrong tense or anything like that. It'll just be a friendly discussion about this topic that Philip loves. So thank you, Philip, for presenting, and I'll leave it to you.
Well, thank you very much, Sandy, and thank you for building this wonderful organisation. Can everyone see my slides?
Yep, you sure can.
Great. So I'll dive straight in. And I've called this presentation All Things Paddington. So I'll be talking about Paddington Bear, Paddington Station, and I'll also be talking about the district of London called Paddington. So to start, we'll go right back to the year 959 AD. That's over 1,000 years ago. And there's the first reference in a document to a place called Paddington. But it was written in an old language called Anglo-Saxon. And the spelling was a bit different. And you can see that the letters A and E are combined together in that peculiar way that we don't have in modern English. So we can break down this place name into its 3 syllables and translate them into modern English. And I'll go from right to left. So we'll start off with the syllable tun at the end, and that means farm. Next syllable is ing, and that means belonging to. And as for the first syllable, well, we think that is a short version of an Anglo-Saxon name for a man, padder. So if you put those 3 syllables together, you get the farm belonging to Padder. And this format of place name is very common in the English-speaking world. You've got Paddington, Islington, Washington, and there is a place in England called Trumpington, and we're a bit worried about that. So, moving on. Paddington, for about 900 years, was a place where nothing happened. The spelling of the name changed to the modern spelling, and it grew from a farm to a village. But even though you could walk from Westminster, from the Houses of Parliament to Paddington in an hour, it was still like a place in the country. But all that changed in the 19th century. And it changed because of one man who had this splendid name, Isambard Kingdom Brunel. And what you can't tell from that photograph is that he was a very short man. So he wore these top hats to add some height. And also he had big ideas. And his one of his big ideas was that people could buy a single ticket, jump on a train at London, travel to Bristol by railway, transfer to a steamship, and then sail to America and be in New York in a few days. But none of this existed. So Brunel went away and he created this means of getting from London to Bristol to New York. He built huge steamships, which were decades in advance of their time. And then he built a railway, which was a high-speed railway. And he built this railway, which was 190 kilometers long, in 4 years. And that included the world's longest railway tunnel. And then he designed Paddington Station, which, as you can see from the photograph, it's still a busy, important station. And it's been enlarged and modernized over the years, but if Brunel was to come back, he'd still recognize the station that he designed. So, hats off to Brunel. He was a man who got things done. So, the station, Paddington Station, opened in 1854. And for about a century, nothing happened. The trains just went backwards and forwards from London to Bristol and other places, and it all worked fine. And then in the year 1958, something very important happened. Two children called Jonathan and Judy Brown were at Paddington Station with their parents, and they found a bear. And the bear had come all the way from Peru in South America by ship. He was an illegal alien, and he ended up at Paddington Station. And he was very polite, he spoke very good English, and he had a label around his neck, and it said, "Please look after this bear." So the children asked the parents if the bear could come and live with them, and the parents said, "Of course not. He's an illegal alien," and they reported him to the authorities. Well, actually no, because it was the 1950s and things were different. And the bear came and lived with the Brown family, but he needed a name. So they called him Paddington after the station. And Paddington is also very appropriate as a name because bears have got paws. And on their paws, they've got little pads. So Paddington. So all of Paddington's adventures were written down by a man called Michael Bond. And he wrote a whole series of books. And the first one was A Bear Called Paddington. And if you have the first edition of any of these books, you're in luck, because they are very valuable. I saw this one being advertised on the internet, and it was £4,250. I wish I had one. So, moving on. That's just a picture of a marmalade sandwich, Paddington's favourite food. So, Michael Bond's books were very popular, and I read them all when I was young. And in the 1970s, Paddington transferred to the television, and there was a cartoon series, and you can see the technology was a bit different in those days. And in the year 2000, this little statue of Paddington appeared at Paddington Station, and it moved around the station to begin with, but it ended up on platform 1, which is the right place. That's where the Brown children found Paddington. So now we're going to go on a little detour, and I'm going to tell you about the station and some changes that happened to the station, and then I'll come back to Paddington Bear. So I mentioned that Paddington, the area of London, is a little bit out to the west. It's not in central London. And also Paddington Station is a terminus station. Trains come in and they leave the way they came. So that's a problem, because if you want to carry on your journey, you have to transfer to a bus or a taxi or a tube, and that takes time. And then if you want to go across London and go somewhere east of London, you have to do the whole thing again. You have to change from your taxi to or your tube to another train. So it was all very long and complicated. And Brunel had this idea of building a tunnel under London, because we know Brunel liked building tunnels, but it never happened. And for about 150 years, the situation just didn't change. It was very difficult to get across London. And then in the early 21st century, a new project started, and it was called, very imaginatively, Crossrail. So the idea was that you would catch a train coming from the west. Some trains would terminate at Paddington, as they always had done. Others, just before they arrived at the station, would dive into some tunnels, and the tunnels would take the trains under central London, and then it'd resurface out to the east and carry on overground. And along these tunnels, various stations were built, and these stations were massive. If you've been on the tube, you'll know it's tiny. The trains are tiny, the platforms are tiny, the stations are tiny. And these Crossrail stations were going to be enormous. And the first of them, coming from the west, was going to be at Paddington. So you'd have the old station on the ground, and next to it there'd be a great big hole in the ground, and a great big station was going to be built. And for 10 years, I worked on helping to build Paddington Station, the new underground station. And here's one of my bosses. His name's Ben Hardy, and like Sandy, he comes from New Zealand. And I've got a video, so he's just going to describe the project.
Right now, we are about 3 metres above what will be the concourse for Paddington Station, and to my left here is where the escalators will come down for the passengers that come out of Paddington Station, which is just behind us here, and they'll come down here, and the gates are just behind you, and from there they'll descend down another set of escalators onto the platforms at Paddington Station. So we're right in the middle of the box. It's about 255 metres long. There's over 100,000 cubic metres to be excavated out of here, and we're about nearly halfway through the excavation here at the moment. This box.
So if you have a big job to do, you need a Kiwi. So that video was recorded in 2014, but at the same time, another movie was coming out, and it had more impact. It was the first Paddington Bear movie, and it was a huge success. So in 2017, Paddington 2 was released. And then in 2024, the third movie, Paddington in Peru, was released. Actually, I haven't seen Paddington in Peru. I'm waiting until it is free on terrestrial TV. So in the first movie, there's a very brief scene where you see an old man sitting in a restaurant, and he raises his wine glass as Paddington goes past. And that is actually the author of the books, Michael Bond. He's got had a cameo role in the movie. So Paddington 2 came out in 2017, but just before it came out, something very sad happened. Michael Bond died, I'm afraid. He was in his 90s. And you can see that the little statue of Paddington Bear at the station became a shrine. And you can see flowers, cards, and those are little jars of marmalade. So, moving on. So now we get to the connection with Volodymyr Zelensky. Because Paddington was now a global phenomenon, and the video explains the connection.
Мы много времени провели с мишкой вместе. Привет, мейка Викон. Ау. Колись було, а зараз ви собачу їжу рекламуєте. Хорошо.
So that tweet was Hugh Bonneville, who plays Mr. Brown in the movies. And he's learned for the first time that Volodymyr Zelensky voiced Paddington in the Ukrainian version. And someone else made that connection as well. He was the cartoonist of a paper called the London Evening Standard. And in February 2022, he drew this cartoon showing Paddington Bear standing up to the Russian bear. So, of course, 2022, the news was dominated by the full-scale invasion. But one or two other things happened as well. And the first was that we finished our station, and most of the other stations on the line also finished. And we opened our new railway, and we added it to the tube map. And it's that purple line that you can see running across the tube map. But also the name changed, because we called it Crossrail, which is a bit boring, and it was decided in honour of the Queen that it was going to be called the Elizabeth Line. So here it is. Here she is at the opening ceremony. And you can see she's colour coordinated. She's dressed in purple, though actually I think the press release said it was a lilac outfit. And in the background, I think that's Ben Hardy again. And that photograph wasn't even taken at Paddington. So, but that's not all that happened in 2022. Because 2022 was the Queen's 70th year on the throne, and it was her platinum jubilee. So to celebrate, she invited Paddington to tea. And you may remember that in 2012, 10 years previously, she had done a parachute jump with James Bond to open the London Olympics. Well, I think she was in more danger when she invited Paddington to tea, because Paddington is very well-meaning and he's very polite, but things, well, accidents happen when Paddington's around, but things turn out all right in the end, as we'll see.
Thank you for having me. I do hope you're having a lovely jubilee.
Tea?
Oh, yes, please. Oh, terribly sorry.
Never mind.
Oh dear. Perhaps you would like a marmalade sandwich. I always keep one for emergencies.
So do I. I keep mine in here.
Oh.
For later.
The party is about to start, Your Majesty.
Happy Jubilee, ma'am. And thank you for everything.
That's very kind.
When Paddington's speaking in English, he has a very different voice from Volodymyr Zelensky. Volodymyr Zelensky's voice is much deeper and gravelier. So it's very interesting that the last words the Queen speaks in that video were, "That's very kind." And I think those words are very carefully chosen, because the theme of Paddington is that if we're all a little bit kinder and a little bit more thoughtful, then we can make the world a better place. So on one level, Paddington is the story of a talking bear. But when Michael Bond was writing the Paddington stories and creating the character of Paddington, he was thinking back to the Second World War, which he'd lived through, and in the train stations, he'd seen children who were being evacuated from the towns and cities out into the countryside. So the train stations would be full of these little figures on their own, no parents. They'd have luggage, maybe a label around their neck saying their name and their address, and they were looking a bit lost and a bit scared. So they just needed someone to show them some kindness. And later in his life, when he became famous, Michael Bond was a big supporter of charities that helped refugees. And here's a quote from Michael Bond to finish with, just reminding us that Paddington Bear was a refugee with a label. Please look after this bear. And that's the end of my webinar. I hope you enjoyed it.